You muted, Andres.
There we go. Okay, that's fine. Welcome, everyone. This is Andres Restart. That is my co-host, Brandon. And tonight, we're going to do a fun little discussion, maybe sort of spec breakdown stream, among a few other things. It's interesting because I thought we had a pretty fun discussion Monday night. And now 3 days later, I think we're going to have another really fun discussion with a lot to talk about. Because a lot of things have been kind of happening lately. You know, I was actually thinking that the beginning of the year would be kind of slow, and as it's not as slow as I thought it would be. So
I kind of did expect a little something. You know, it's the year probably almost certainly of Switch 2, and the closer we get, the more leaks to come.
And, Right. No, I'm glad you brought that up because apparently, or actually not so apparently, the Switch 2 launch time was leaked. And when I say not so apparently, I mean not actually leaked, but some people thought it was leaked. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how we've already gotten confirmation that it's not the case. It's already been basically debunked. So I'm kind of glad I didn't completely pause my Star Fox video today and just rush and make that video because I was like, I've been wanting to make the Star Fox video for a little while. And so I know, by the way, guys, I really hope you guys can hear me. So please let me know if everything sounds okay, if we look all right. But I just want to say that, I like doing this, I like talking about Nintendo, and I do like covering the news, but I also like making theories. But, I want my channel to be like a well-rounded Nintendo channel. And so I don't want every video to be Switch 2, Nintendo Direct, Switch 2, Nintendo Direct, right? I want to be like, I want to talk about Metroid Prime 4 today. Or you know what? Let's talk about Xenoblade Chronicles X. And we did that. We did that last week. And I was good. I was happy. Even though the Xenoblade X video was the worst performing video last week, for my expectations for what a Xenoblade X video could have done, I actually feel pretty good about that. So the video has gotten over 4,000 views, which I would say is pretty good for a Xenoblade X video, right? So maybe I'm just very fortunate that, people are watching their stuff too, but so I feel pretty good about that. And, today I was like, you know what? I've been working on the Star Fox video for a little bit. I've been sitting on it. I want to do this. I'm not going to rush into the Switch 2 leak thing. I'm going to finish this other Star Fox video. And I actually feel really good about how the video came out. And I know everyone wasn't going to watch the Star Fox video, right? But I think the video has already gotten about 2,000 views. And so, it's only been out for a few hours. That's pretty good, right? So, I guess the point I'm making here is that, yes, if there's breaking news, I will try and cover it, right? But sometimes, I think there is value to sitting on things for a little bit and just prioritizing my creative vision, right? So my creative vision is, more well-balanced Nintendo discussion, right? So I got the Star Fox video out. I think it came out well. I'm excited about it. If you haven't seen it, check it out after the stream. I feel pretty good about this one. And I think that we could be getting Star Fox. I think that it's actually based off information that I think suggested Star Fox may be in the works, right? So I think there's something to that. And I don't know what we're talking about tomorrow, but tonight, we're going to talk about this Switch 2 leak and how it's already been debunked. But we're also going to be talking about these specs. And I'm not talking about the specs that everyone was reporting this week, because those are probably bogus, and we already discussed that yesterday. We're going to talk about specs that are seemingly far more legitimate and also seemingly far more exciting, I would argue. Brandon, I think you would agree.
Yeah.
But before we do any of that, and before we get into the chat, what I want to do is talk about Golden Sun, baby. Because guess what, Brandon? I don't know if you saw on Twitter.
I did not.
But Nintendo just announced the two Golden Sun games for Nintendo Switch Online, Game Boy Advance.
Ooh.
Yeah.
The first two, 1 and 2?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I actually haven't played any of them, so I'll definitely give them a try when they come out.
Yeah, this is a pretty big double. Pioro teased a Game Boy Advance announcement this morning, and I was like, please, could it be Metroid Zero Mission? And while it wasn't Metroid Zero Mission, it was pretty much the next best thing, or arguably better, because we got two Golden Sun games, so that's pretty exciting.
A lot of people really asking for Golden Sun.
Yeah, no, that's like it's awesome.
I mean, I'm only
Um,
aware of it because of the people who, like back when I was making YouTube, were asking for that even.
Yeah, so I found what I'm gonna do is put on the trailer. We'll watch it. It's only like a minute and a half long, right? And then we'll jump into things. But I am seeing here that SD, Aaron Raffs, the Manta crew are all saying that everything sounds good. Josh Woods, thank you everyone. I appreciate that. So things sound good. So it looks like the stream's off to a good start. But let me just put up this video because I didn't get a chance to watch the full trailer, and I want to watch the full trailer. And I feel like it's Golden Sun. It deserves a little bit of attention. So there it is. Nintendo has it. The announcement was literally an hour ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this was not that long ago. So let me put it up on stream here for everyone. We'll lower the background music for a minute, and then share screen. Brandon, let me know if you can hear it, because if you can hear it, they should be able to hear it too. I'll also share tab audio. Yes, okay. I mean that's probably would help it to work.
Probably.
All right. Right. Okay.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Dick. I like how they actually like put effort into these trailers.
Hmm.
The music.
Very nice.
Oh man.
Dang.
Dude. Yo. I thought for Game Boy Advance, like the visuals are awesome.
Yeah, no, this looks great.
It just there's so many cool designs. Like the
They're
music
really-
is awesome. The art style is awesome.
I love how a lot of like the I don't know if they're super moves or what they're doing, but like some of the attacks had like giant animations to them, which were really cool. Like when the dragon was
Yeah.
blowing everything up.
It's super cool. So, anyways, I guess that was me low key advertising Golden Sun. It's free on Nintendo Switch Online for
I'll definitely
NSO
give it a
expansion
try.
pack members. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I haven't got a chance. I've dabbled, but I've never had a chance to play them from beginning to end. And so
Mm.
for me, this is exciting. I've always wanted this, and it's interesting because beyond just them being amazing games that we can now play, or on January 17th we'll be able to play, so in less than a week, but because I've been thinking that we might see a Camelot game this year. Camelot is a developer for Golden Sun.
Hmm.
And so if you look at the history of Camelot, the last 10 to 15 years, it's been just Mario sports titles, like Mario Golf, Mario Tennis, Mario Golf, Mario Tennis, like different versions of that. And I almost am kind of hoping that this prediction I have is wrong, because I've been kind of predicting that Camelot would come out with another Mario sports title this year, because
Right.
2018 we had one, 2021 we had one, so in our 3-year window to develop another Mario sports title, 2024. And was it with you? Was it we were talking about how that development team was actually pretty small? It's only like 30-ish
Yes.
people.
It was like 35
Yeah,
people or something.
right. So they don't have a massive team, right? So like a Mario sports title in 3 years, that's reasonable. But to expect them to make like a Xenoblade game or something, like that's not reasonable for a team like that. But
Yeah.
I kind of wonder though, right? Like they put at least both. They didn't put just one. They put both, right? So I almost wonder, like, is this them kind of setting things up for maybe a new Golden Sun entry this year from Camelot, because they are positioned to put out a game this year, right? Now, what I want to say is if this were to be the case, I don't think Camelot would be like re-envisioned like with 3D visuals and be like this open world RPG kind of like Xenoblade or something like
No.
that. Like I don't think they're capable of that. But could they make like maybe something like an HD 2D style kind of game, like basically like what Golden Sun
nice.
is, but you know the in HD, right? Because Golden Sun actually has like 3D-esque visuals. So it's actually really impressive for the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
I actually would love something like that, right? Like not every RPG has to be a big, massive open world adventure. Those are cool, but there's room for other things. And so I'd be happy with Golden Sun kind of staying close to its roots, especially, if this is how Camelot can get it out. So
Nice, because
yeah,
they're not going to be able to pull off those kind of huge special moves that you saw in that trailer with like a full 3D game. Not with the kind of size team that they have. It would take a lot of work
yeah.
to do that. That'd be like Final Fantasy 16, like kind of.
Well, I mean, it would be so ambitious, right? Then
Yeah.
that they don't do that. Now, the thing is, with the Mario Sports titles, they're guaranteed to sell, so they're making bank on those. Golden Sun, on the other hand, which requires more effort, more time, sells less, right? So it's very tough when you can make
Yeah.
something that's easier, it's guaranteed to make you a lot of money, versus something that's it's a it's a passion project, but it's harder to do and it doesn't sell well. Like that's tough, So of course I'm making the assumption that they prefer Golden Sun over the Mario Sports titles, but
Right.
maybe they're like, nah, Mario Golf is our true passion.
I mean, when was
I
the
don't
last time
know.
that studio made Golden Sun? Probably not even the same people.
3D. Well, no, I think they did make I think they're responsible for all Golden Sun games. But let's double check that. Camelot.
There
Camelot.
was one for the 3DS.
Yeah, I believe so.
Oh, okay.
Oh, why am I on
It's more
Bing?
recent than I thought. Ugh,
Right?
that's gross.
No, I'm not. I'm not. Google just had an update. I don't know. All right,
Oh.
so the last Golden Sun game they made was in 2010, and since then it's been just Mario Golf, Mario Tennis interchangeably.
Okay.
Well, they had Mario Sports Superstars, so that has more other things. Yeah. So the last thing they made is Dark Dawn on Nintendo DS, 2010.
Okay.
Yeah, and then before that, I mean, it was the two Golden Sun games, right? One in 2001 and one in 2002. The two that we're getting in a week. So it's been a long time. It's been almost 15 years, 14, I guess. So
Yeah.
it's been a long
long
while. Yeah, but let's just check in with the chat, right? I see I have some super chats here, and so we're gonna into the chat. Then we're gonna talk about the this debunked Switch 2 launch leak, and then we're gonna get into what are likely the most reliable specs we've gotten yet about the system. And Brandon and I are gonna try to break it down. I'm gonna try to break it down in layman terms. Brandon's gonna break it down so I can break it down to layman terms because he understands these things better than I do. But neither of us understand everything, right? I don't think anyone does. So I do encourage conversation. Like if there's some things or are curious about, bring it up in the chat. We can look it up. Like Brandon and I are not afraid to Google and confirm things, right? I don't know why like there are so many like discussions on the internet and there are debates and so few are willing to just Google it when they're already at their computer. So we're willing to do that here. But let's get into the super chats first, and then
Cool.
we'll get to that. All right. So I got 2 super chats already. Awesome. Karen posted this like way before we even went live, which is cool. Thank you very much for the super chat, Karen. And Karen says or asks, what's your take on the growing list of Switch games no longer getting physical prints? Hope Switch 2 is announced sooner rather than later. Yeah, I haven't dived fully into this yet. This potentially is tomorrow's video. I got to wrap my head around, if I can make this a compelling topic. But it is an interesting subject. So from what I heard, and I haven't done my full research on this yet, right? So that's why, I'm saying it now.
Right.
But I believe Metroid Dread is no longer available. Pikmin 3 Deluxe is no longer available. Paper Mario: The Origami King is no longer available. Right. And that's what I've seen reported I saw someone in a video, I think it was Rogers Base, suggest Fire Emblem Engage is also no longer available. I don't know if that's true. That one would be kind of crazy
Mm,
because that one came out literally a year ago.
yeah.
And so I don't know if that's true or not. I definitely want to double check that one. But the point is, there's at least some key high quality Nintendo titles that are seemingly no longer available in retail, right? Or limited supply. And so people are wondering, well, what does this suggest? Um, from what I vaguely understand, this has happened in the past. Again, I haven't done my research on this. I want to look at the dates and things like that, right? If I
Right.
can. But this tends to happen late generation, right?
Mm,
And so late generation, you can construe that as, oh well, that means Switch 2 is coming out soon. So that could be another drop in the bucket, right? But that beyond that, like what else might it mean? And so there's been a lot of talk about maybe like Nintendo Selects coming back, and so maybe some of these
be
titles
nice.
come in at a cheaper price. And I will say, right, with those titles that I mentioned, I'm not counting Fire Emblem Engage. I'm not sure about that one. But Metroid Dread, Origami King, and Pikmin 3 Deluxe, all those games have sold pretty good. But to my understanding, they have not continued to sell.
Right.
And so, can Nintendo repackage them as Nintendo Selects? Maybe they stand out a little bit more, as in the stores now because they have a different box art with that Nintendo Select packaging,
Right.
and they're at a cheaper price. And so, does that help them reach a larger audience? I hope so, because more people need to play Metroid Dread and Origami King. Way too many people sleep on those games. Yeah, so there could be something there, right? In terms of specifically in the Switch 2 thing, I feel like, yeah, it might be a subtle hint, right? But it doesn't really indicate if it's coming out this year or next year. Like
Yeah.
I at least I would have to go back and check all the dates for one of these things that happened in the past, right? But I don't think it's like telling us, oh, Switch 2 announced it's happening in a month. Like it doesn't really tell us that. But does it suggest that we are in the waning years? Probably.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I hope it does also mean we're getting discounted versions of these games, because I think that would be pretty cool.
That'd be nice because I was just thinking that maybe they were just looking at just whatever games were not currently selling and like, okay, they didn't we got our earnings in, or we got the numbers in, and we saw this game only sold 50,000 copies this quarter. We're just gonna stop printing this now, because I would imagine they would stop doing that as quickly as made sense to them, because those cartridges are very expensive for them to print. They're not cheap. So if they're not going to sell them, they definitely don't want to keep making them.
Right.
But if, as far as selling them again as selects, I mean that would make sense to me. But Nintendo's kind of
Yeah, I mean,
weird about
it
sales.
could also be they just don't plan on selling them physically anymore, and they're just clearing out things because they have other games they plan on bringing out instead.
Yeah,
Yeah, which is
just
less
only so
exciting, I
many
guess.
carts that you can print at once.
Right.
We're not
So
sure what carts they're using for the Switch 2
yeah.
either,
I
and
mean,
they need the same
I
manufacturing
gotta
space
tell you
for
though,
it.
I do love the idea of Nintendo transitioning. I mean, so all right, so just think about this from the perspective of the different types of consumers, right? So there's the you and me, right? A lot of us here watching, we're gonna do everything we can to get Switch 2 as soon as possible, right? Because we're the diehards, right?
Facts.
And so if Nintendo were probably gonna buy the $70 games, right? We're gonna buy the $400 console. And yeah, that's expensive. Gaming's a luxury, right? But well, there are still going to people that they're not going to really need that for a few years.
Right.
And so I think it would behoove Nintendo to still keep the Switch around, as we expect they will. And they're going to want to position the Switch in a way that appeals to an even larger audience, especially with Switch 2 being so dominant, right? So like no longer like that main core gamer is going to prioritize Switch because of Switch 2. But there's still going to be a lot of people out there that are going to be like, oh, well, okay, this system is cheaper now, right? Because I think they'll probably price drop the Switch OLED
Oh
and
yeah.
maybe the Switch Lite as well. And so those will be easier to buy. But then also if they have a lot more Nintendo Select titles on top of that, so it's not just the hardware, but the software that's cheaper as well, right? So say someone picks up a Switch Lite OLED, right? I have a theory that's going to come out at some point. And so when they do that, they're like, oh, well, what game's going to get with this? Oh, Metroid Dread, that's only $40. That seems like a good deal, right? And so they pick that up, right? And they pick up Origami King, which is also $40. And like that works. And then instead of them buying maybe one $60 game, they buy two $40 games. And guess what? Nintendo just made more money, right? And even though they're focusing on building up the Switch 2 audience, they're still pushing sales for Switch 1, and that increases the chances for Switch 1 to eventually, become the best-selling system of all time a couple years from now.
True. Selects just makes so much sense. I really hope Nintendo does it. And they're not just like, these games, they're never going on sale. But I wonder if they will wait, like when they will do this, right? Because I don't think they're going to just do it immediately. They just now are starting to do this like rollout thing of where they're not printing physical games. But maybe by the end of the year, since Switch 2 will be out, maybe that's when they start doing it. I kind of feel like they will wait for the Switch 2.
Yeah, no, that I understand that. I mean, it could just be positioning, right? It's all positioning. Like the Switch first look trailer was taken down last year, right? Like it's these things happen, but it doesn't mean an announcement. But it's necessarily imminent. But it's positioning things for when they do happen, right? Like, or another example, like how they titled all the directs last year Dash Nintendo Switch.
Right.
It didn't mean that they were going to announce Switch 2 before the end of the year, but it might mean that they are positioning things and gearing up for when they do start marketing Switch 2, presumably sometime this year. So that's a possibility. But let's move on to our super chats. So Harry Myers, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Harry says, if DBZ BT3 comes to Switch 2, who will be your main and why? So Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3? Didn't that already happen? I assume you mean Sparking Zero, right? Yeah, because I thought Budokai Tenkaichi 3 happened. Maybe I'm just confusing it with Tenkaichi 2. No, yeah, Budokai Tenkaichi 4 is the new Sparking Zero. That's the new Dragon Ball fighting game that's coming out this year, right? So it is Budokai Tenkaichi 4. And so that's what I assume you're referring to, right? Because 2 and 3 came out years ago. But I do believe it is coming to Switch 2, right? Do I have any actual like inside information on that? No, I just think it seems like an obvious choice, right? And so who's gonna be my main? Well, I'm really pulling for Beast Gohan to be in the game. And so Beast Gohan is the latest transformation of Gohan in the most recent Dragon Ball Super movie. And we only got like a few moments of him fighting. And so I hope that, they actually kind of more, they kind of envision a little bit more to him and what he can do in that form. And maybe this game, if it's not confirmed that form will be in there, but my goodness, would it be a missed opportunity if it isn't? And so maybe DLC, right? But, yeah, I'm kind of I want to play as Beast Gohan, because although Orange Piccolo, that would be cool. Oh, not even just Orange Piccolo. Brandon, you're like, what?
We're here like, what does this mean?
Right? Yeah, you probably don't even know what he's talking about. But then there's Black Frieza, right? So I'm just thinking like the newest versions of some of the Dragon Ball characters. What is it? Ultra. It's not Ultra Instinct. Ultra Ego Vegeta. I want to play it. I would want Ultra Ego Vegeta. That could potentially steal my heart. I think. But my instinct is Beast Gohan. Pun intended there. Because Beast Gohan's all about instinct. Anyway. Yeah. Moving on. Another super chat here. Thank you for super chat. Sam Talks Games. So Sam, it looks like is saying, Andres, I think Switch 2 will come this summer, July-ish, and it'll innovate in the software department with improved operating system shop and stunning visuals. Yeah. So my prediction is, I mean, I hope you're right? Like the sooner the better for me. But my prediction is summer, but I like to point out that summer this year technically ends September 22, and so if it ends up happening September, right? I would be right, but that's like very very late summer, basically early fall.
Right.
So I am predicting summer, but there is a window there, right? That said, I do kind of agree with you that I think the Switch 2, I don't know, right? But I do kind of have this. I feel like, given that it's an iterative system, they're going to kind of evolve and improve the things that the Switch are, right? Very much. I mean, we've heard this already from other people, but like very much how like Nintendo DS to 3DS, right? They improved a lot of the features,
Oh yeah.
like the operating
DSOS was
system,
super basic.
right? eShop, Street Pass, right? I'm actually predicting that Street Pass is going to make a big comeback. I actually feel like not having Street Pass on Switch is a huge missed opportunity. Like, just
Be
look how many
nice.
people have a Switch. Like
Bluetooth's a
over
lot
100.
better now too. Like the range on it's super good. It's a
Yeah.
less battery life taken away from it. I hope that the Bluetooth, just in general, not only to support Street Pass, but just so my dang controllers don't cut out
Well,
constantly,
I mean, maybe the
is
problem
better.
is that with if you're gonna have Street Pass open,
Yeah,
that might drain more
Bluetooth 5.4
battery
core.
than normal. Hello?
It will, but I
Yeah.
believe the new Bluetooths don't drain as much battery as they
Okay.
used to. I think it's better now, but I still, I'm not sure exactly how much, like how long
Yeah.
it would last that way. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe the reason they didn't do Street Pass on Switch is because they didn't want to waste battery life. But
I mean, to be
I
fair,
just
like
feel
your
like,
phone usually has your Bluetooth on all the time.
yeah, and that gonna last a pretty good while, right? And there's all sorts of other things working in the background on top of that. So I mean, if
Yeah.
I think it could probably go a healthy amount of time, um, like that. So I hope they bring it back. And so I'm optimistic on that, right? And I think Street Pass is cool because it's a nice complementary or supplemental feature, right, to the Switch, and it
Mm,
can really complement a lot of games. And so I think that would be really nice. And ultimately, yeah, I do kind of feel like most of the innovation should come from the games, right? You look at Breath of the Wild, you look at Tears of the Kingdom, you look at Metroid Dread, you look at Pikmin 4, you look at Mario Odyssey. Like all these
mm,
games kind of innovated their respective series, and I think there was innovation there, right? Like they changed a lot, especially in the case of Breath of the Wild. Like Breath of the Wild is one of the most innovative games Nintendo's ever made,
oh
but
yeah.
it wasn't because of hardware. I mean, obviously they needed to be able to produce the game, but like not like
Right.
controllers and stuff, right? It was just let's make a damn good game. And so I'm optimistic that that's kind of the direction Nintendo's headed in now. It's not that they don't have hardware that can do wacky, fun things. I mean, obviously, the Switch can do all sorts of things with the Joy Cons and such. We have the
Right.
Labo, we have Ring Fit Adventure, and those are awesome things. But the focus has been just let's make some damn good games. And I think a lot of the innovation comes from that. And so to me, that has me even more excited. And so right now, yeah, it's kind of fun speculating on Switch 2, but what I'm really waiting for is for me to talk about the games, right? Like
Mm.
I want a Metro Prime 4 trailer so I can break that down and theorize about it to Kingdom Come. I want to like
Oh
look
yeah.
at like 3D Mario. I want to do a graphics comparison with you on that game. Like I
Ooh,
want to
yes,
see
sir.
F-Zero GX remastered or whatever it's gonna be called. Like
Mm,
these things I'm kind of waiting for because there's
right.
so much more conversation we could have. And obviously when we get to play them, that's on a whole other level, right? But yeah, so I'm excited for this. I think Switch 2 is gonna be amazing. I mean it's the beginning of a next generation console, so like that's there's always that excitement.
Yeah. I mean, to touch on the specifically the improved OS and shop and stuff, I definitely think the OS will just have a lot more wiggle room because I think the OS on Switch is very much just like be as fast as possible all the time. Because my major complaint with the Wii U was it took forever to do anything with that
Yeah.
system. The OS was bad.
I've fired it up recently. It's pretty damn slow.
But I
Yeah.
I don't think that the Switch 2 will. I mean, it might have like more cores dedicated to the OS, but I think it'll still probably just be one. But it should be significantly faster each CPU core in that system. So you should get a big boost with the OS that should allow them to do a lot more with the same level of speed. So I'm hoping for themes and things like that, as well as hopefully we get like Wi-Fi 6E or Wi-Fi 7 chip in there, so we can actually have good Wi-Fi because the Wi-Fi chip in the Switch is awful. and that also makes the OS experience a lot more rough, especially with the shop.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I'm for that as well, right? As long as they can keep the costs at a regular point, and they can accomplish what needs to be accomplished, like, please. Um, but moving on, we actually have a few more super chats. You guys have been active today. I appreciate it. Um, Adam Ginther, did I pronounce it right, or is it Adam Ginther? Please correct me if I'm off with the pronunciation of your name. But Adam asks, think we will see Baldur's Gate 3 as a launch title. I assume BG3 is
Mm,
for Baldur's Gate 3. That's a
I don't
great
know if
question.
launch, but I definitely think they will port the game with how popular it's been,
Yeah.
especially having it be handheld and not just in the very very niche PC handheld market space would be big.
So I'll say this, right? If there's anything outside of the game just being a good game to have on Switch 2, there's a couple of the reasons why I think it makes sense. One or two, because there's already that reason, right? But we've seen a lot of third-party games come to Switch much later and be successful. One of the most
Mm,
recent best examples is Hogwarts Legacy. And so having a version on Switch 2, which probably would look and run better than what we see Hogwarts Legacy on Switch, right?
yeah,
I think a lot of people who haven't had the opportunity to play Baldur's Gate 3, the game of the year, a lot of people are going to be excited to do that, right? Now, obviously, Switch 2 is still going to be pretty young, so not that many people will own it, but people will give it a try, right? And so
mm.
it'll be available moving forward. And
I
so I think
imagine
same. What do you say?
I imagine that it would be a really really good portable version of the game because I don't think it's going to be very far off from the other next gen versions.
Sure. No, I definitely agree with that. And I mean, I feel like the same logic applies to Elden Ring as well, the
Mm,
prior game of the year. And so I think a lot of Switch fans would love to play those games, and so having them available early on for Switch 2 makes sense.
oh yeah.
Um,
It's gonna be a
I,
lot of
I
late gen third party
yeah,
games that will come to Switch too early on.
I don't think I'll predict a day one launch title though. I think early on, right? Whatever that means within the first few months, I think they'll try and get a lot of these big third party games on there that are fairly
Right.
recent. And because they're going to try and think of a strategic time for them, whatever they decide that is. But I'll throw out this other little nugget, right? Like if there's some doubt on Baldur's Gate 3 coming, there was something that happened around the Game Awards time leading up to the Game Awards where we knew about Baldur's Gate 3 being nominated and having a strong chance to win Game of the Year.
Mm,
On the eShop, they put a major discount for both Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. And so, for those that didn't know, yeah, you can play Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 on the Nintendo Switch. They're
I
much
wondered
older,
that.
more simplistic games, but they were there and they were discounted. And so, there is an awareness of that Baldur's Gate interest, right, that
Mm,
has been expressed on the Switch eShop. So, that's not confirmation of anything, but I think it does kind of slightly suggested, yeah, well, maybe we're on the right track with thinking that BG3 should come to Switch 2 in the not so distant future.
yeah, I
So
don't see why it wouldn't. I think it would sell a lot. It wouldn't be
yeah,
that hard to do.
I agree. All right, so one more super chat here, and we're gonna move on. So Aaron Raffs, thank you for the super chat, buddy. Says most likely not happening, but would be a great birthday present for Nintendo to announce the new hardware. Still hoping for an early release. Yeah, I hope we're getting an announcement soon. My prediction is by the end of March, the end of the fiscal year. But we'll actually see what's going to happen. Brandon, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
Sorry, somebody texted me.
That's all right. I'm gonna boot you from the show now
I
for
see.
not
I
paying
see.
attention. You're gone for good. Just kidding.
No.
No, it was just the hope of getting announcements sooner than later. I mean,
I
I think
mean,
we're on the same page. You've been thinking of maybe even sooner than me, right?
I've been thinking that we might get a tease this month or next month.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see, right? I've been thinking by March, but I'm I'm open to sooner, like for sure. Um, that said, I do want to get to the other points in the chat. I want to do that, but there's kind of a lot that we need to discuss tonight, right? We still haven't gotten to the Switch spec breakdown. So We
Right.
got those super chats. We're gonna get to the normal chats. But what I would like to do first, as an in between, is talk about this launch date rumor that's been debunked already.
Mm.
It's not gonna be a long discussion because it's been
No.
debunked. So there it is, right? But let me see here. I hadn't pulled it up. I was actually trying to spend some time with my dad before the show. We started watching Shin Godzilla. I convinced him
Ooh,
to
nice.
watch. Yeah, it's on Crunchyroll. But we were having a good time. So we saw the first half. I'll watch the second half in a couple days probably. But
Mm.
let me see here. I think I liked it. All right, so my guy Botox Game retweeted Jason Schreier. And so okay, there it is. All right, so I'll just screen share this because I think that'll be the easiest way to just sort of demonstrate and show the info.
Facts.
All right, let me hide that and then present. All right, here we go. All right, you can see this?
Yep.
All right, cool. All right, so the thing that people were talking about throughout the day, right? Here, IGN does a good job of just summarizing it. AI Shark revealed in a press release that this was during the CES that it was reviving its GameShark brand, and its relaunch in September 2024 is planned to coincide with the Nintendo Switch 2. And so this is what was said, and so people thought, oh, well, when they say coincide, that means at the same time, right? So September 2024. They think that's happening the same time as Switch 2. And, I think September 2024 is a solid prediction, right? That falls within my prediction, right? I think it falls about yours as well, Brandon.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
apparently AI Shark was just kind of, putting some gusto in their marketing here and making just like an informed prediction, right? Because Jason
Yeah.
Schreier here said, FYI, for your information, an AR Shark spokesperson tells me that they're just guessing about the next Nintendo console's release date. So it's a guess, a prediction. They don't actually know. It has not actually been leaked. And that's now a debunked rumor.
Right. I mean, in hindsight, why would they know? I feel like they probably wouldn't know.
Not AR Shark. Like,
No.
they're not a game dev, right? No,
I'm not even exactly sure. They do like cheats and stuff, right?
Right, that's what they do.
They're like a modern version of
Like
GameShark, right?
they probably would be like blacklisted by
Yeah, I'm sure
Nintendo.
Nintendo probably hates them.
Probably. Yeah. So I don't know. Now that doesn't mean they wouldn't have some inside knowledge, right? Because they still probably work with tech companies. I'm not certain. Point is, it's not a leak, right? So I think there's I guess the question is, should we still take it somewhat seriously? Because if they expect it September 2024, they may have it may come from it may be a good educated guess, right? Like they may be more privy to things than we are. And so is that a perhaps still does it end up being September 2024, right? Like even though it's a guess, it may be a guess that is likely to be true. Exactly.
Yeah, because we're not sure what kind of information they're basing this guess off of. But I don't know. I feel like a lot of people. I mean, I've been saying September 2024 for past like year. So
yeah. I mean that's kind of what I've kind of gravitated towards most of the time.
Yeah.
So
It's pretty much
I'm
like
gonna pull up.
Okay.
Is AI Sharks guess for September I don't know how to spell September 2024 Switch 2 launch correct. All right, so I said okay, well, all right, that does not need to be capitalized. Is AI Sharks not guessed? Guess. How did I put a T? They're not even right next to each other. Is AI Shark's guess for a September 2024 Switch 2 launch correct? I'm curious what you guys think. I think there's a really good chance that it is correct, even if they're not certain. So it may not be a leak, but some people may argue it's a leak a few months from now when we do get the actual release date. So we'll see on that. Shout outs to King Frost, who provided this really cool super sticker. And by the way, just want to say I've seen it before, but I love your profile picture. It is super epic.
Yeah.
And so I think now we've arrived at a point where we can just get to the chat and address some questions and points brought up there, and then we'll finally dive into the specs breakdown, and then we'll do a little bit more Q&A afterwards to close out the stream.
Cool.
Which will
Sounds
probably still take like an hour. So we're not. I'm not saying we're almost done. We still have a long way to go. All right, let's see here, because I haven't had a chance to just dwell too much in the chat. Oh man, I can't see everything. I wanted to be able to see. I can't see as much as I wanted to. It sucks.
Need the all-seeing eye.
Well, it won't let me scroll further up. So that's what's annoying.
Lens of truth.
What happens if I put live chat? Does it let me scroll further up?
Live chat is what you're gonna want, because the other one has things taken out.
Yeah, but it still seems to like not allow me to see everything, which is really annoying. Like it won't. It's yeah. Yeah, like I can't go further. Like it deletes stuff after a while. So that's unfortunate. I might be able to do it on here, but it's harder for me to see the ads. So that's where it gets tricky, and there's a lot more. All right, but I'm just gonna kind of skim through. Right, so some of these chats are from even before the stream started. All right, so Retro Cheese here said the GameShark company just assumed and used this publicity stunt to get more eyes on their product. Remember, Nintendo has a TOS; they don't want you to modify their games in any way, and even tried to sue the Game Genie company back then. No way they team up of all of a sudden. I think that's a fantastic point. I still think that it may have been a good educated guess, right? Because I mean, they would want this to come out around the Switch 2. Like it makes sense, you know.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it completely discredits the idea of a September launch, you know. But yeah, I don't think we should treat this as a leak.
No.
So in other words, there's definitely other options that we should absolutely have on the table here when we kind of talk about possibilities. Hello there, Harry Marius. AB James. I predicted September from the onset. September 3D Mario, October Metro Prime 4, November Pokemon, with Mario Kart X to follow in Q2 of 2025. Of course, there will be even more games than that, like a potential new casual IP from Nintendo, some third-party stuff, but you really can't beat that as an out-of-the-gate lineup for Switch 2. I think that would be a very, very solid lineup. I totally agree with you there. Connor. Hey, Andres, how's it going, man? So do you think Nintendo can release Tomodachi Life on Switch 1 before we move to Switch 2? Because I put Tomodachi Life in the middle for my bingo card. Well, I think there's still going to be games coming to Switch 1 and Tomodachi Life that probably would sell well in Switch 1, even a year from now, I would say. So I could be, yeah. So I think there's definitely a chance. I don't know for a fact or anything, but yeah. Nishwick Pops. I need more explanation ideas of these From Software Kid Icarus Zelda game from the latest video. Okay. All right. So, yeah.
Crazy concept.
Yep. That was I threw up that idea today. And so, basically, the story behind it, right, is that we're hearing about Nintendo working with even more companies to develop their games. And Nintendo's done this before. They've outsourced their games before. I mean, Metroid Dread's outsourced to Mercury Steam, and that's a fantastic job, right? Star Fox Zero to Platinum Games, not necessarily the best job, but Platinum Games in general does a good job.
Yes, usually.
Right, and so there are some examples. I mean, Advance Wars 1 to Reboot Camp with Way Forward is another. Actually, it's a good example. The game didn't sell well, but that's not Way Forward's fault. That's Nintendo's for delaying the game way beyond it when it should have, and not marketing it well. But point is, yeah, like this is definitely something Nintendo's done for years. Heck, F-Zero GX, Sega, like they worked together to bring that back on the
Mm.
GameCube. A lot
I
of
mean,
Star
even
Fox
Capcom
games.
with Zelda.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we had Minish Cap and Oracle of Ages and Seasons. So this is not anything new, but just more, right? And so perhaps this could be the opportunity for Nintendo to work with other third-party companies that would love to maybe make an F-Zero game or a Kid Icarus game or a Star Fox game, games like that, right? That
Mm.
deserve an entry, but Nintendo's main studios are focused on the other ones. And
Right.
so I think it's a great idea, right? And so I throw out the
Oh
idea,
yeah.
what about From Software, right? From Software, they make games all the time. They're always high quality and they are willing to make exclusives. We've seen games like that, like with Bloodborne, and they're willing to work with IP that are already like established, like Armored Core. And so
Mm.
what's stopping them from working from Nintendo and it also being an already established IP? Nothing, just negotiating a deal that makes sense for both parties. Right. And
Fact.
so what if Nintendo is what if one of the studios that Chris String is reporting Nintendo's in talks with is From Software? And what if they're working on maybe a Zelda 2 remake or Kid Icarus game? There's that possibility, right? And so how would a Kid Icarus game work if it was developed by From Software? So, one of the reasons why I think it's cool to bring up Armored Core is Armored Core has flying in it, right? I didn't play
Right.
it. I would like to at some point. But
Yeah, I haven't played it
like,
either.
I
Seen
think
some
the
gameplay.
right, but I guess the point is Armored Core is not like a traditional From Software game, right? It's not you moving
That's fair.
around in a suit of armor, slashing zombies and the undead, right? It's you in a mech flying around, and so
Yeah.
it shows that From Software has more flexibility. It shows that they can still put in other types of gameplay, even though it may still have that essence of what a From Software game is. And with that in mind, they could have Kid Icarus, they could have Pit. He could fly around. He could still kind of do the things he does, but he could still explore like this Greek mythological world. Add these
Mm.
giant beasts that he fights. Like you can still do that, and that would be pretty cool. And it would be a Metroidvania, in 3D, which is what From Software kind of does with a lot of their games.
Right.
And I think that would actually fit like the origins of Kid Icarus pretty well. They weren't Metroidvania, but there was progression, and you would obtain items that helped you do more things. So I don't know, it would be cool. I think that they definitely could do something to that. And
Mm.
then Zelda 2, I mean, Soulsborne games kind of feel a little bit like old Zelda and Metroid games, and so
Have
if
they worked
that
in
would
an
be
art style that might work for a Nintendo game before? Because I feel like they always go for obviously not photorealistic, but like stylized realism.
sure. Yeah, I mean, it would definitely be them going for an art style that would probably be a little bit more cheerful if it's Kid Icarus, right? But that doesn't mean it has to be like I think there's a middle ground, right? Like it doesn't have to be
Mm.
like yeah, then that
Yeah,
I
it would
don't
just be
think
the
that
most
that would be the
stylized game
reason
they've
why
ever
they
made.
wouldn't. Sure, I think that's fine. But also, on Switch 2, they would be totally capable of putting something that would compare to their other games,
Mm.
visually.
Yeah.
Now I would expect them to still be more stylized. Yeah, just because considering the IP that we're talking about here, Kid Icarus. Zelda 2, though, like if this is meant to be like a spin-off, I could see them going more dark.
I would like that.
Maybe not like blood, but like definitely like teen rated, definitely like
I mean,
medieval.
Twilight Princess
Like
had blood.
it would. All I'm saying is it can't go beyond. I don't think they would go beyond teen. I don't think they would make a
No,
mature rated game.
not
Not
as a
based off an established Nintendo IP, unless Nintendo buys back Conker's Bad Fur Day or something, which is not going to happen. Although if Metroid Prime 4 came out and that was rated M, that would blow my mind. I doubt they would do that. Anyway, so I mean, those are just some ideas. I think they would be pretty darn cool. All right, so moving on here. Risky Gumiyar. Andre, if you start, can Nintendo survive another year without new hardware? Yes, they can survive, but I don't think it would be good business for them. I think for their financials, to make their investors happy, to make us happy, to have a better, successful start to their generation, they should start now while they still have
Yeah.
momentum before waiting until things are dry and done and people start forgetting about what Nintendo even is.
Yeah, it's not like Nintendo doesn't have a crap ton of money in the bank. Just they could not make another system for years and they'd be fine. But they're not just wanting to be fine. They're wanting to do the best that they can, which is probably to launch it this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Having Hope here says, your Xenoblade X video was the best video. It deserves way more views. Thank you, Having Hope. I appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, like I as I was saying earlier, like it's fun to make videos that aren't just Mario, Zelda, and Switch 2. And I like making those videos too, but I like Nintendo across the board, right? So
Right.
when I have an opportunity to talk about something else that I think makes sense that you guys would like, that I am also passionate about, I am gonna try and do it. So moving on here. All right, I think we're starting to catch up. I'm definitely skimming some stuff. I'm sorry I can't get to everything. Red Cap, Andres Restart. You might have said this before, but this is a little bit of a longer one, so I'm going to put it up. You might have said this before, but what if that 3D action game remaster that Namco is working on is Star Fox Assault? I'm starting to think that's more likely than Kid Icarus Uprising. Namco made the OG. And so I actually did bring this up in today's video about Star Fox. Because you're totally right. Namco did. Now they're Bandai Namco, but once upon a time, they were Namco. And they are hiring for a 3D action game. And the two 3D action games that Nintendo has it's Star Fox and Kid Icarus, right? Technically, those are the two that fall into that genre. And I would say recent comments from Sakurai would suggest that they are not doing Kid Icarus right now. There is an implication that he would want to do into the future, and it's possible he's doing a little bit of a bait and switch. But if Kid Icarus is outruled, Star Fox Assault, or something Star Fox makes a lot of sense. Because at one point we saw job hirings for a 3D action remaster commissioned by Nintendo, and so that it could be Star Fox Assault, and that would actually be pretty cool. But I'm also up for a whole new game.
Assault could definitely look really good. I mean, it looks great on GameCube.
It's got a cell shaded art style. Yeah,
it looks great in 1080p or whatever resolution you want to put it in, emulated. It's
and they added online play. It has a multiplayer that I think is criminally underrated, or rather,
pretty good.
It's not appropriately utilized because there is no online play. But if there's an online play, maybe they extended it to 8 characters, dude, it would be so good. It would be so good.
I would hope. I mean, with a remaster, it's unlikely that they're going to change a ton of the game, but I would hope
online
that they
play
spruce up online play. But I would hope that they spruce up the on-foot sections because they're not fun.
Well, I mean, quality of life updates, they can do some subtle changes that could perhaps optimize things. I haven't played the game in years. I remember liking it a lot back then. I'm trying to remember what about
sections.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I remember people criticizing the on-foot stuff. I liked it, but what do you remember about them that made them not so great to you?
I remember it's been years since I've played it as well. I remember maybe being really slow and just not fun. Like the things you did were not fun.
Interesting, because I actually remember them moving around pretty quick. Like Fox was he felt pretty agile.
No, you ran around quick, but the areas were really big and spread out, so you kind of had to run a long way, and then there was just not much to do.
Yeah, I think I'll have to revisit the game to kind of think on what they could change.
Yeah, I haven't played in a long time.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'd say I like the game as is, right? So but it's been such a long time. I also will argue that it's not a super deep game, right? So there's a lot of areas where you're just shooting a whole bunch of enemies, and to me that's fun.
No, yeah, it's fine.
But I don't know, if they just make it clear what your objective is, and maybe again, I think I would have to go back and play the game. So I guess I can't really speak on what they could do to make it better. If there's one thing I kind of remember, I remember kind of getting hit and maybe being pushed back, and that was kind of annoying sometimes, if I remember correctly, and my memory may be betraying me here. And so maybe they can just come up with a move that kind of they can kind of allow you to get around that. Yeah, but again, it's been so many years, so I should probably just stop speaking on something I don't remember well. So this is interesting. Metroid Fighter 90, Andres, do you think they'll enable a means of transferring data over from the first one to Lost Age? Oh,
talking about
It,
Gold Sun?
yeah. So is there a feature in the second one that kind of does something based off the first one? Um,
If so, I imagine it will work.
right, especially because they're releasing them together. You know, I don't know much about this because, like I said, I only dabbled with them, but way back in the day, I haven't played them from beginning to end.
It
But if
should
there's a
still work
feature
the
that kind
same
of
way.
does, yeah, I mean, yeah,
Should
if you
just
already have
read
your
that
save
you have
data,
save data. Yeah.
it seems pretty doable to me. So hopefully, they can do that. Although I don't know why because I'm not sure. So, but it feels possible. All right, so all right, I'm gonna get to the specs now. I'm just gonna read a couple more chats. The Zesty car added me. I'm banking on September. So is John of Spawnwave. Also, I just got Metro Dread today for $40. Nice.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. September does feel like a pretty solid prediction, and I mean technically that falls within my prediction window. So we're kind of all on a similar page here. Boom Mini also added me. My two favorite Nintendo channels on just restart Nintendo Prime having live streams at the same time. Ugh, watch one on my phone and other on the TV, I guess. Fine by me. Fine by me. Let's see here. Boom Mini was saying, I'm coming up with some Gandorf behavior. This is awesome. Was I? I don't know what I did with Gandorf
What?
like, but Gandorf's a cool dude when he's not killing people. Nishant K, Armored Core is a From Software IP. Yeah, I thought I heard something like that. So Armored Core was before From Software made Dark Souls. Okay. Very interesting. Cool. So it does, but I mean, I think the point stands though that it shows that they can make different styles of games. And things like Bloodborne show that they are willing to make exclusives for, other game companies. So I still think, we could see a From Software game on Nintendo, like an exclusive. Like I think it's possible. Obviously, it's not guaranteed, right? But I think it's definitely on the table.
It's a possibility.
Yeah. Josie Woe in the chat. What is up? She was actually in our predictions live stream in the last live stream of the year. Yeah. All right, so I think we can now get into that spec discussion.
Hell yeah.
Ready, Brandon? All right.
Yes, sir.
So, first I want to say the Taiwanese Economic Forum info that came out this week, right? We don't believe those are the specs for the Switch 2. I put out a video yesterday.
I've not actually seen them.
So I'll tell you what the specs are right now, right? And
Okay.
so without we have what we believe are more likely the probable specs from Universal Nintendo, right? Who is a pretty good journalist. The Universe, he's the edit. Necrofelipe is the editor in chief of Universal Nintendo, and so they compiled things that they've heard alongside with reliable rumors from places they trust, and so they put together probably the best approximation on the internet right now of what we should expect for the Switch 2 specs. And so we're going to be talking about that. But before we get to that, there was info, and the reason why he put this out this week was in response to what he believes is bogus specs, along with others, on what surfaced from this Taiwanese Economic Forum, which, from reading the article, and my ultimate conclusion is it's just speculation that they put out there based off rumors, and it may even be based off old info. So we should pretty much discard it. But this is what they were suggesting, Brandon.
Okay.
4 things. Well, 5, but I mean, everyone expects Switch to be $400, so that's nothing. That's nothing to really talk about. So better battery life, a 120 hertz screen, only 64 gigabytes of internal storage, and just 8 gigabytes of RAM. That's what the Taiwanese Economic Forum was suggesting. And so, what do you make of that? The thing that I think is definitely wrong.
Yeah, I don't see why they would put 120 hertz screen on there. Like, there are some benefits, but it probably costs a lot more. There are 120 hertz screens on more expensive PC handhelds, but for the more cheaper ones, even like the Steam Deck OLED's like a 90 hertz panel. Um, I just Nintendo's never even like had a VRR compatible display, so for them to just be like, ah, we're gonna go 120 hertz
What does
out of the gate,
VRR mean?
a variable refresh rate. So essentially, it adapts the refresh rate of the display. So if you're not hitting your target frame rate, it doesn't judder as much, even though it
Okay,
won't be as smooth as hitting your target frame rate. But it won't
it helps.
judder. It makes it to where the frames can really set a better timing, essentially.
Interesting. Okay, so Nintendo's never even done that before.
They've never even done that. They never even have that. You can't even if you had a display for your Switch, you can't even use VRR. It seems unlikely that they would just push for a 120 hertz panel. 90 hertz maybe. I could see like a 90 hertz OLED like this because the Steam Deck has those, so they're already being manufactured. And there'd be some uses for that, but even so, like for most, I mean, it's not in a closed ecosystem where games are most likely just going to be capped at 60 FPS anyways. It's not helpful
Okay.
most of the
And,
time.
and so a thought that I had, right, is that 8 GB of RAM doesn't seem like something that would be great to push a system to have 120 FPS games. Um, Nor would it be great to utilize DLSS fully. Am I right
Mm.
in that train of thought?
I mean, technically, as long as you don't really need extra RAM to run at extra frames. Um, you might need more RAM speed to change. I don't think so because you're not
So
moving through the
what
game.
I've
No, I
read
don't
that
think it changes RAM. But what was the other thing you said?
DLSS.
Oh, yes. DLSS is it has different things that they use on and ray tracing both um build different things to accelerate things, and those are stored on in RAM. So
Yeah.
you do need more RAM to run those.
Yeah, so I mean, I just like have read that RAM is good for performance, right? And so that's why I make the leap that would impact that could
I- If it was an eight
be a
gigabyte,
factor when it comes to frame rate.
yeah, I'll tell you, if it has 8 gigabytes of RAM, it's definitely going to be a 1080p machine. I don't think they would target 4K with. They'd need at least 10 to 12.
Yeah, and so I guess the ultimate point I'm trying to get at here, right, is do you think going for 120 hertz screen and having 8 GB of RAM is contradictory? Because I kind of do.
I don't think it's necessarily contradictory. I just don't think it makes sense to put a 120 hertz screen on
Like
a
I
console that's
guess
not going to
maybe
be running
contradictory is the
120 hertz
wrong word.
game.
Just maybe not the most cost effective or most efficient way to go about doing things.
I mean
I don't know. It just
the
seems a little nonsensical to me.
the RAM and the refresh, as I said, like you don't need more RAM to run at a
Sure.
higher refresh rate.
Okay.
I just don't think that games are going to be running at 120 hertz in handheld mode, anyways. Um,
That's another interesting. Well, yeah.
just battery life reasons. I don't think Nintendo would want to enable that.
Right, but apparently they have a better battery life though. But
Yeah, but
that's the other thing though. Like you have a better battery life, but you can still run at 120 hertz. Like, all right. So
I feel like it.
it just to me it just
Yeah.
doesn't seem like it really adds up. Um. So, anyways, a lot of people have already come out and said that this doesn't really match up. Like in my video yesterday, I pointed out how sources from Universal Nintendo, Red Gaming Tech, Nate the Hate, all of them have heard things that are contradictory from the information that came out from the Taiwanese Economic Forum, which if you just read the article, there's nothing in the article that even says that this is a report that from information they've heard. It's really just speculation. So I'm tossing it. I'm tossing it out, right? Like that's it. I'm tossing it
Yeah.
out.
Get
And
rid of that
so
garbage.
and so let's actually talk about the specs provided by Necrofelipe that I think are actually pretty exciting. So let me go ahead and just screen share this article here. All right, so I think you should be able to see it.
Yep.
Right. And so these are the specs here they talk about, right? But they also, they talk about a number of things here, right? They talk about how, I mean, let's just go over it, right? And maybe Brandon, you can offer some of your interpretations and your better knowledge on these things. And
Yep.
so it has an SoC NVIDIA Tegra T239 codename Drake. This is we've heard about from the NVIDIA leaks that
Yeah,
this
that's
is likely
leaked.
what the Switch 2 is. Right. This I'm not 100% sure on, and I want I want to see if you understand this better. I see lithograph TSMC 4N. Does this mean a 4 nanometer process or no? Is that
Yes.
something?
So it's by TSMC. It'd be for their 4 nanometer process is what they're
So,
claiming this runs on.
well, isn't 4 like really good?
Yes. Yeah, it would be very power efficient.
Like I remember hearing articles a few months ago that maybe we get 5, and so this is which was already considered to be like better than some expectations, and this is saying 4, which is even better than that.
Yeah, I believe they're new. They're already on to 3 for their newest. So this one would be their newest manufacturing node, which makes sense because that's going to be way more expensive than this, and probably doesn't have as good yields. But this might be their most stable.
And
Um,
and so in
cost
layman
is
terms,
actually pretty
right?
good.
The lower the nanometer, the better, right? But what does that
Mm.
actually mean?
It just means that you're going to need less electricity to run the chip, so it's just going to save you a lot on battery life. But
Oh,
in
maybe that
terms of
maybe
like
that Taiwanese forum thing was right after all. Better battery life. Here we go.
true, but you're also running a lot more
You're
stuff.
doing a lot more, right?
Yeah,
Exactly. And so they need to have a more efficient process to be able to output better visuals and have solid
yeah.
performance. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So here they say a CPU 8 core A78C. We don't know what the clock speed is.
I think that's just from the NVIDIA leaks, and we've never gotten any more information on it, which is why they don't
Sure.
know the clock speed.
Okay. And then here the GPU GA10F 12 ampere SMs derived from the NVIDIA RTX 3000 series. What do you make of that?
That
Same
is
same deal
concurrent
basically
with the
from
leaks.
leak.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I find this stuff interesting, right? Performance mode in docked 3.5 to 4.5 teraflops. This is based off what we're kind of estimating, and in portable mode 1.7 to 2 teraflops.
That'd be. I mean, it's in line with what I'm expecting. That'd be
How much
portable
teraflops
mode.
is a PS4 Pro?
Oh, it's like 4 or 4.2.
Just
Four
so
something.
PS4 is 1.84, PS4 Pro is 4.2,
Yeah.
PS5 is 10.3 apparently.
Yeah.
So to put that into perspective, am I still sharing the same thing? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I went to another tab, so that's why it was a little
Mm.
off-putting for me.
No, yeah, just stayed.
I mean, so that's pretty good. So basically in portable mode, this thing is at PS4 power, and in docked
Yeah.
mode, it's at PS4 Pro power, approximately. And so what I'm very curious on, does this account for the DLSS boost before or after the fact? Like I don't. I'm
It
assuming
it,
that teraflops
it
is just more
doesn't.
like
This is
raw,
just raw performance. Yeah.
raw computing, and so DLSS it makes the image quality better along with other things. So it's kind of hard to maybe quantify what that would be, but I mean,
Mm.
I guess I mean just from my perspective, right? Like if this is like the raw number that we're kind of at before all the really cool bells and whistles, that sounds extremely promising to me. Is that an appropriate interpretation, Brandon?
Yeah. This is just raw performance. This doesn't take into account any other features.
And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind, right? We're talking about modern tech, right? And so with modern tech, it's always going to perform better with a similar amount of teraflops or sometimes even less than to something older just because of the modern tech in
Right.
general. Okay.
Well, to put this level of performance in comparison to Switch 1, the Fallout chip in docked mode, which is not what the Switch uses, would be about half a teraflop. I believe the the main clocks that the Switch actually uses puts it somewhere in the mid 400 gigaflop range. And then in docked mode it's somewhere, or undocked mode it's somewhere in like the 300s.
Mm,
So yeah, that'd be 0.3 and 0.4 respectively here.
interesting. Okay. So moving on to RAM. So unlike the Taiwanese Economic Forum that said 8 gigs, this is saying 12 to 16.
We have
And
heard
what
12 before.
Right, I've heard 12 before, right? So Red Gaming Tech and Necrofelipe have heard 12 before, but his article here is saying now 12 to 16. So now there's a 12 was what we heard, but now apparently there's a possibility it could be as high as 16. I'm going to assume it's going to be 12. I feel like with Nintendo specs, it's always safer to assume less, right? So even maybe like we assume that the Switch 2 is probably maybe like 3.5 as opposed to 4.5. That's probably a safer expectation. And same here, right? So like I would lowball a lot of these things, but I would feel like the lowballs are still really good.
No, I think they definitely are. I think 12 would be enough for them to do 4K.
I mean, the Series S uses 10.
Yeah.
And this is DDR5. Is the Series S also using DDR5?
I think it's a very low bus DDR6, if I'm not mistaken. So like a low bandwidth DDR6.
Yeah, you're right. DDR6.
It's a 128-bit bus, right?
Yep, that's it.
How many?
Well, hold on. It's 128-bit.
Yeah.
On Series S.
Yeah. So
no, to be clear. So Series S, 8 gigabytes of it are 128. 2 gigabytes are 32-bit.
Oh yeah, that's just the system RAM.
Okay.
The OS level stuff.
Okay.
I mean, I assume the Switch will probably have 2 gigabytes of RAM allocated to system memory.
Sure.
But they might allow you to use one of them for certain games. Sometimes.
Yeah, maybe Nintendo unlocks it later down the road, kind of like how they unlocked like more clock speed for Switch later down the road.
Series S, Microsoft also allowed you to use extra memory now because they were having issues with memory. What's the memory bandwidth? Does it say there what you have pulled up compared to Series S?
For Series S?
I believe it should be pretty similar to this.
Let me see if I can control F memory bandwidth. No. I don't see that here. But it may be here and I just can't find it because there's a whole bunch of text everywhere. Not sure. Maybe are you trying to Google it?
Yeah, I'm looking it up. Okay, so 10 of them is running at 224 gigabytes per second, and 2 of them are running at 56.
Okay.
So it'd still be a lot more memory bandwidth on the Series S, which is potentially an issue, but not. It's an issue for third-party ports in terms of like texture resolution and things.
Well, I mean, DLSS might clean that up.
Not really.
No, not texture. Well,
DLSS doesn't have, well, I mean, they might. Who knows? They could have something in the future where DLSS does textures, but currently, no.
Okay. All right, so we have the cake here. The nice cake. Presence. It's cake. The cache. Presence of syslc unknown. Tegra GPUs, however, can access the CPU cache as opposed to cake to optimize themselves. What do you make of that?
Don't know.
Right.
Not exactly sure.
I think it's a win that I just know it's cache as opposed to cake.
System level. Let's see.
Well,
I'm not sure exactly.
There is something here that I am pretty clear on. Display 8 inches, 1080p, LCD, 60 hertz. So 60 hertz would allow for 60 FPS, right, to be shown.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful. But I would like to kind of focus on the 1080p here, right? And the 8 inches rumor still seems to be believed, which is awesome. That's bigger than the OLED. Brandon, remember we had a discussion and I was like, hey man, I don't know. Like, I understand that, like, you know, maybe they stick with 720, but like, if you're gonna do a next generation console, do 1080. Like, why? I don't. It would feel weird if they stuck with a 720p screen again.
I think it'd be fine either way, but I would like a 1080p screen. If you're not going
Yeah.
to do an OLED, then give me a 1080p screen.
Now, one thing here that is a little bit of a head scratcher to me is that he's saying LCD, but we did have a report that Nintendo is requesting multiple next generation displays from Samsung. And this is as of last December, so maybe they didn't see that report here, and so that hasn't been updated. Or maybe there's something misleading about that report or something about this one, right? So again, you know, we still have contradictory information, but this could be just old info, potentially. Either way, I think it's just pause to take things with a grain of salt, right? Like, none of this is 100%, right? But it's based off the most credible stuff we have so far. If we got this, let's say it's non-OLED screen, as the report we got from December suggests, 1080p, 8 inches. If it's a more modern LCD that can demonstrate, you know, a good range of colors, even if it's not OLED level, I think that would probably overall be a pretty good win. Higher resolution, bigger screen, still pretty good colors, with just a system that has better performance and visuals across the board, significantly. I think people will be happy with that.
Yeah, I think most people would be fine with that. I would probably prefer 720p OLED because I imagine it's still going to be a lot of games that run at 720p.
Sure.
Yeah, but it may be very nice for last generation games. You know, Switch 1 games running on Switch 2.
Yeah, I mean, would definitely be nice. So here's another interesting talking point: internal storage, 256 to 512 gigabytes, with UFS 3.x being a likely candidate as read-write technology. So, do you know what this is? UFS 3. Yeah.
3.x? No, I'm gonna look it up though.
I mean, I assume it's related to just how quick the internal storage is, right? Like, because we've heard about like having solid state drives, right, which would be really good.
Universal flash storage.
So it would be fast.
I mean that. I don't
Hopefully.
know how fast UFS 3 is.
Well, can we look up what the current Switch is at? Switch internal storage speed. I just wanted like a thing, like, you know, a number. The Nintendo Switch uses a 32 gigabyte Toshiba eMMC 5.1 module, which peaks at 300 Mbps.
Facts. That's very slow. UFS 3, the slowest. It could be 3 or 3.1. Because it says 3.x.
Sure.
3 would
lowball it.
2.1 gigabytes per second read.
Whoa.
410 megabytes per second write.
That is significantly faster.
It would. It is.
Right.
It's still. They would put the write speed pretty close to the new next generation Xboxes. But
that would be about 6 to 7 times faster than what
the
the
write
Switch
speed
2 currently
is.
is. Right? Am I interpret that correctly? You said 2.1 gigabytes per second?
Yes. This would offer significantly better loading speeds and stuff. If it's 3.1, that peaks at 11.6 gigabytes per second.
That's a huge jump.
Yeah.
So even low ball is amazing, high ball is obscenely amazing.
Yeah. I believe PS5 uses there is 5,000, I believe. Or 5, which would 5,000 megabits is 5 gigabits.
Yeah. Interesting. Huh. Well,
I mean, it would put it within like range of the read and writes,
right. Like
well, not write, the
honestly,
read
I
speeds of
feel like even the low
Xbox
ball
Series
would be
S.
okay.
No, yeah, it'd be fine. It would
Yeah.
offer great performance that would
Yeah, and
significant.
significant. Yeah, yeah. It would make a big difference. And yeah, so we've heard about up to 512 gigabytes. I've always been skeptical of the 512, just
Mm.
because it's Nintendo, right? But you know, I'll take it if they can give it to us, give it to
I
us, right?
really hope they do 512, because I know third-party games on the Switch 2 are going to be so much bigger
Right.
than Switch 1. I mean, they're probably not going to be as big as even the Series S versions of the game, because I
Sure.
imagine they'll have to lower texture resolutions and things. Um, but it's going to be close. So like, keep in mind your common Switch third-party game is going to be in the several tens of gigabytes. I'm talking like, it wouldn't be uncommon to see a Switch 2 third-party game at 50 gigabytes or more, maybe even 100 gigabytes with Call of Duty.
Right. And when I think about that, like 512 will only do so much.
Yeah, even 512 is low.
Right.
Like that, the Series S. Now they did come out with a 1 terabyte model, but the Series S did launch with 500 gigs.
And I guess the difference is it's still a portable device, so I just but it doesn't mean it can't. Obviously, I mean, this is just suggesting it can be done. It's just in general, I feel like lowballing is a safer approach when it comes to Nintendo specs, but they
Yeah,
won't always
especially since
lowball
they
across the
offer
board.
good expandable storage. But I'm curious how the expandable storage will work, because I'm also curious what the fastest micro USB standard is right now.
I'm not sure, but here they talk about cartridges, unknown, but 3D NAND is an option for a significant increase in space in order to reduce costs in relation to existing cartridges.
3D NAND is like how they do SSD mic monitor and M.2 SSDs and stuff. Like they stack so generally like one layer on a normal one would be then stacked, so you could have a lot more storage.
Okay. Well, I feel like we had definitely. I mean, we covered this, right?
Oh, my USB.
And so it sounds like you're googling something.
Yes, I'm googling the micro SD standard current.
Please do. I guess my takeaways from this are just Switch 2 is gonna be sick. It's gonna be pretty good, even if we lowball everything, except maybe the internal storage. But
Okay.
just having faster storage would be awesome.
Yeah. So the this was made in January 11th, or revised in January 11th at least. Currently, it doesn't seem like they made much improvement in micro SD speeds in a long time. 300 is megabits per second is the current cap on read speeds there, which is about the same as like the internal memory on Switch 1.
Right.
So I'm not sure how they're gonna handle expandable memory then.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess having this internal storage is faster, like some of it dedicated to the operating system. Does that make a big difference, right? Or like, are we going to not see the loading benefits if a game's running is like stored on an SD card?
It depends. Like, if they even allow you to do so, like on the PlayStation, Xbox, like if you have something on an external drive that's not compatible with Xbox, or on the PlayStation side isn't a Gen 4 drive with rated speeds that it needs, it just won't let you download those games. Like, it'll let you play PS4 games or like older Xbox games on them, but it won't
What
even
if
let
they
you
just
play them off
have
that.
expandable, and like what if the expanded storage isn't micro SDs, but it's just like you can just they have it like a slot, right? Like the internal storage, and so that is literally expandable. Like you can take that out and plop in a bigger
It's
one if you wanted to.
it is possible. Some of the newer PC handhelds do have this option where you can expand the internal storage, and technically they could use an M.2. They
So
could
I
probably
guess my
use that.
question is, if they did that, how do you transfer?
How do you transfer?
Right? How do you transfer? If they only, let's say they hypothetically they only have one slot, how do you transfer it from one to another? Let's say you fill up your 512 gigabyte internal storage, and so you buy a terabyte one a year later, and you want to move everything over. How do you do that? Ask Nintendo a year from now.
Yeah, I guess. You probably need to plug. So you'd need to get an external, storage device, right? So you could plug your storage into that, and then via USB-C, plug that in your Switch, transfer the data, and then install the new card.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how you do it on the PlayStation. You have the internal and an extra slot.
Sure. I mean, also, like, if you have your save data, you can always re-download it from the eShop, right? So as long as you have your save data, everything else can be re-downloaded. So maybe it's not even really that much of an issue. But that said, right, like, general thoughts, what is your takeaway from this, right? Like how is any of this like changing your mind somewhat on your expectations? Is it more exciting, more disappointing? Like, where does this leave you, Brandon?
It falls very in line with what my expectations for the machine is. Around PS4 levels of power, docked, more like Series S, undocked.
Oh, I think you swapped them. Undocked.
Other way around. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Um,
Yeah. So weaker PS4 portably. I mean, it's like a portable PS4, but docked, it's something approaching Xbox Series S level.
yes,
I
but
think that's pretty good.
I do think that we should stick with probably the lower end
Right.
of that, because
And
I
so,
think they're
like,
gonna
I'm
be
still kind
very
of factoring in that DLSS, right? Like, they're gonna shoot for lower targets, but with DLSS, they're gonna have something that compares to Series S, right? So it's not gonna actually
yeah
be at Series S level, but after the DLSS effects and everything, like, the final result is gonna be something that compares to it favorably.
right.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, that's cool. Like, I for me, if anything, like, it's exciting to kind of hear about the potential like speed of the internal storage and just how much better it is than Switch, right? Like that kind of that makes you feel
Loading's
pretty
gonna be
warm and
nice.
fuzzy, right? Like that's
It'll also
cool.
make the OS a lot snappier. They could do a
That's
lot
the
more with
OS
the
is already
OS.
very snappier though, right? The OS is
Right.
super snappy, but the difference is the OS is basic now. So
Right.
can they have a more immersive, a more interesting operating system with different bells and whistles, maybe like things like Street Pass and maybe some background music and themes and things of that nature, and still be snappy? And so if they have the best of both worlds, that's exciting as well.
Yeah, there's still some things that I would like to know about this system for sure. Like exactly how much RAM it has, what the actual bandwidth is going to be. I think
Yeah,
that's the
it doesn't
thing
have a
that will.
refrigerator.
I imagine the memory bandwidth will be a big limitation on Switch 2. It's already a big limitation on the Series S, and that it has double what this is projecting to have. So, but having more RAM should help. But it may mean that targeting 4K for non-Nintendo games may be a big issue,
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with
even
that.
with DLSS, because DLSS, as I said, you need to build things on RAM and the memory. Essentially, the problem with DLSS is it takes about the same amount of memory to run 4K what was that? DLSS as it does to run
How
4K
about just
native.
say NVIDIA Magic? Is NVIDIA Magic better? Is that easier for you?
NVIDIA Magic.
Yeah, NVIDIA Magic.
Yeah, so even if you have NVIDIA Magic, you still need that RAM space. So,
So you need mana.
yes, you need mana.
You need mana to produce those Nvidia spells.
However, what I'm not sure about is how much the actual speed of that RAM is important.
Sure.
I'm not sure.
Right. And we also don't like there are question marks, right? Like if we don't have the full picture, and also this info is not necessarily concrete finalized. It's still I still put this under rumor territory, right? It's solid, juicy, credible rumor that is kind of like what I sort of operate my assumptions under, but I do have in the back of my mind the final result may be different.
I will say this is definitely a class of system that will be able to run, albeit not as good as say the PS5 or Series X.
Diddy Kong Racing.
Diddy Kong Racing. That's exactly what I was thinking.
With
no,
15 characters.
Nah, bro, you can shoot for at least 100. But Unreal Engine 5 games. This is definitely, I think, something that will be able to run that. We've seen Unreal Engine 5. I don't know if you saw the video, but I've been trying to get you to watch. Digital Foundry put out a video showing off Unreal Engine 5 running on the Steam Deck, which in portable performance is a little bit more than that. And with NVIDIA's better handling of ray tracing performance, I would expect even better results. We're already seeing pretty great results for Unreal Engine 5 on even the Steam Deck, which I imagine the Switch should outperform even in handheld mode.
Yeah, I mean,
so I'm
Necrofilipo mentions in his article that like the Switch 2 is like definitely more powerful than the Steam Deck, right?
Right.
And so that's a win for sure. So, I think that's great. Like, like for me, right? Like just looking at it at a very basic level, Nintendo games, they're going like you just look at Pikmin 4. Just look at Metro Prime Remastered, and you're like, just keep in mind that these games are running on like garbage, right? Like, it's basically a potato, and this potato is producing some amazing, marvelous games. And so once Nintendo actually has something that's like significant, what they can do with that is just going to be extraordinary, right? Like Nintendo's always been masters of creating beautiful games with underpowered hardware, or just period, right? Because even when they had powerful hardware, obviously they made good looking games. The N64 had the best looking games of that generation by far because it was the most powerful system. But yeah, so like Nintendo games are look insane, and to me, my understanding is Switch 2 is going to get more third-party games than Switch got. Does that mean every single one? Probably not. But that's for a lot of reasons, right? But I think we're gonna be able to expect a lot more, and I don't think anything is out of the question. I know some people say, "Oh, Grand Theft Auto 6 is out of the question." I don't think it's out of the question. I think it's just do they want to try hard enough to make it work, right?
Right.
And so they're probably more willing to get GTA 6 on Switch 2 than GTA 5 on Switch 1.
I'll say this. These specs are so much closer to the Series S than the Switch is to, say, the Xbox One. Like, the Xbox One is, like, nearly 3 times as powerful in raw GPU, has way more memory bandwidth, has more RAM. It's a much more powerful console. And yet the Switch runs games that are of that generation. And with these specs, like, this is ballpark performance of Series S. It's not going to be on the same level, but it's not going to be anywhere near the same kind of gap we saw between the Xbox One and PS4 and the Switch. It's going to be significantly closer, way closer. So pretty much anything that can run on Series S will be able to be run on the Switch 2. And it won't have to be like nearly as much of a project as it is for Switch 1.
Yeah, we'll be able to play Hogwarts Legacy, and the hair will look like hair. It'd be nice.
You'll have actual resolution.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, right. Maybe you'll actually just be able to walk into a house instead of having to press a button and wait,
Have it load. Yeah.
right? That'd be nice. Um, anyway, I think we've out covered it. So how about we just close out with some Q&A?
Sounds good.
Cool. All right. So I see that uh Boo Mini has provided a super chat.
Ooh.
Thank you very much for the super chat, Boo Mini. Boo Mini says, "Gotta get going soon. Just wanted to send some support. Definitely excited about Nintendo announcements happening this year." Thank you, Boo Mini. It's very much appreciated, and we also are very excited about Nintendo announcements as well. Oh, I guess I'm
Of
assuming
course.
Brandon is.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
he's confirmed. He's also excited. It was debatable, but he is.
Nah, bro. I want to see that Switch 2. I want to see those Switch 2 games.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good time. Looking at the chat here, Cloud9, what quality of life improvements would you like to see in the next Switch 2? Good question. So I've mentioned Street Pass already. Like, I think
Right.
Street Pass, would that count as a quality of life improvement, or would that just count as a really nice luxury? Um, I'm on the record of wanting a revamped Street Pass, but quality of life wise, I've mentioned this before. And if the Switch to portable mode is PS4 level of power, right? I feel that we should be able to expect similar features. And so what I'm getting at is even on a base PS4, you can go into that system. You can be playing, say, for example, right now I'm playing Monster Hunter World. Right when I
Mm.
want to take a break, I go to my home menu, I open up Crunchyroll and I start watching One Piece, and then I'll fall asleep. My system will go to bed. I'll wake up. I can fire up Monster Hunter World back where I was. And so my point is
Right.
that you can have multiple apps suspended at a time. And so I'm not asking to have like 17 different games suspended, but maybe
Mm.
one or two, right? And so to me, that would be a little convenient. That way you can kind of bounce back and forth because, like, on Switch, you can go to the eShop, but you can't load any other apps, right? It's just one at a
Right.
time, and you can suspend one game, but you can't really do much else outside of that. And so it'd be nice to be able to suspend a game and be able to go into another one.
Yeah.
That would be cool. And that way, I don't always have to close things out. Because say you're playing like a single player game, right? You're playing maybe Tears of the Kingdom. Your friends come over, they want to play Smash. Yes, you can save and close it. It's not a big deal, but we're talking about quality of life improvements, right? It does make
Mm.
things a little bit nicer. And so I would like that to be there.
If it's got the
Um,
fast storage, that might not be impossible for them to do
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
easily.
Is there any quality of life update that comes to mind to you, Brandon, that you would like to see?
I mean, the biggest ones for me are ones I already mentioned. Better Bluetooth and better Wi-Fi, because they are so bad on Switch. I can't believe my friend. So my friend just bought new headphones, right?
Sure.
And they got the Bluetooth 5.4 in them.
Mhm.
Like, they will stay connected even if he's not in the house. Like, he was in my house and he was parked all the way down the driveway, like probably 100 feet, maybe 150 feet away, still connected through walls, several walls, still connected, going good. And I can't have my Switch Pro controller too far behind my leg or it will disconnect. Like, that's horrible. That's really bad. I don't like that at all. It's probably the worst thing about the Switch is just other than that, and I guess one that I haven't mentioned would be Hall Effect joysticks. Please, please, please give me Hall Effect joysticks. We're actually seeing these standard and new handhelds and other controllers nowadays. So please, Nintendo, give us Hall Effect joysticks. Stop having the worst joysticks in gaming, please.
Yeah, I'm about that. I'd be for that for sure. It'd be nice for my sticks to not break down. That would be nice. Trying to think of like something else. Improved Bluetooth. I definitely also feel that one. It would be nice to be able to plug in a Bluetooth headset and not have to be worried about there being a delay.
Yeah.
If there's a delay, it's useless,
Facts.
right?
I feel like
So
that's why they don't have voice chats because they just don't display or don't use Bluetooth
maybe
headphones very well, and they don't have headphone jacks on things.
right.
I
They
feel like that's
should
definitely a factor.
headphone jacks would help, right? That'd be nice. Um,
I mean, everything's Bluetooth now, but so just give us good Bluetooth connectivity.
Right. That's fine. If they offer Bluetooth, that's even an opportunity for them to sell their own dedicated headset, right?
Mm.
If they wanted to, an extra accessory there. I'm all for that.
And then
Um,
Wi-Fi, bro,
yeah,
because these games are gonna be bigger. You're not gonna be
yeah,
wanting to download at such slow speeds. Like I swear, it takes like 30 minutes to download like a 4 GB title on Switch. It's rough.
yeah. I got another quality of life update. I think I mentioned it to you before, right? It didn't make it into my predictions, but I would like to see 2 USB-C ports.
Mm,
Maybe one on the bottom, one on the top, depending on the
right,
circumstance,
right.
right? Because sometimes, you plug into the bottom because you need to charge, but that's awkward to hold, or you need the top, like depending on the situation. And
Yeah, one
so
of
that
the
would be
new
nice.
PC handhelds did that recently. I thought that was really good.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah, for sure.
curious if they might want to use that space for something else. Because those handhelds are quite a bit bigger than what I expect the Switch 2 to be. Bulkier, I mean.
Yeah. I would like a sleek design. Cloud9 provides a good point. Ergonomic design. Like I want to be able to hold this system and for my hands to not go numb after a little while. So
If they make it a bit
yep,
bulkier, a bit more ergonomic, they can fit some more stuff in.
sure, but bulky. That scares me. Scares me.
I just mean like fill it
Mm,
out so it's
right. Okay. I
more
mean,
stuff I hold
okay.
on to.
As long as it can still fit into like basically same size dock or something, that's fine. If you mean like basically like grips on the Joy Cons, I can dig that. But it basically it still needs to be able to fit into like a similar like size like carrying case that we have for
Mm.
the current Switches. Like as long as it sticks relatively close to that size, that's fine with me. Yeah. But let's move on. King Frost with another super sticker. Thank you, King Frost. I very much appreciate that. Let's see here. Elemental Hero, the Shao Link, Dragon Wolf King. Always love hearing your name. Do you folks think Nintendo is now watching and stepping in on the Pokemon Company to help them out on the next Pokemon games? Also, do you think they'll wait another year for their games? Um,
Mm.
I don't think they're going to wait. I would like to think Nintendo is stepping in more so, but we don't have any real evidence of that, right? So
Yeah.
I
I
just
mean,
there's no evidence beyond
the
just
only
hey, we're sorry over what
yeah,
happened to Scarlet and Violet. Um,
that's the only evidence, yeah.
yeah, I would like to think that. I mean, I would like to think there's at least a conversation that happened behind the scenes,
Right.
right, with the higher ups, and just to kind of get a good whiff of what they're trying to do, and so hopefully some changes are being done, but I don't know. I hope we get hope. Well, maybe we'll get some insight come this February with the Pokemon Presents.
Mm.
That would be nice to see.
Yeah, I definitely hope something's happening
Yeah,
with that.
there's definitely a game coming. I'll tell you that.
Mm.
That is for sure happening.
Yeah, I'm
Now, I
pretty
will
confident
say
with that.
I'm very open to the idea of them lengthening the generations to 4 years as opposed to 3.
Right.
I personally think it's needed.
I mean, even
What
Call of Duty took a year off,
that's wild.
and they
Yeah,
lengthened. I think they lengthened their cycles too.
yeah. And so I'm all for that, right? Like you can still find a way to have a Pokemon game every year. You can do that and still have 4 year gaps between the generations, right? And they just hire more talent, something else in there. I mean, if they consistently put out, like, it's actually pretty simple. They already have the framework. Think about this, right? They have the mainline game. The next year they do DLC. The next year they do a remake. The next year they do a Legends game. Like they already have the framework to have 4 year gaps. And still have a mainline entry of some kind per year. And
Right.
so I think that would be better. Now, the catch with that is that the remakes might be outsourced. But that
Mm.
doesn't mean they have to be bad, right? They can, maybe Game Freak can oversee it a little bit more. They're giving it a little bit more time. They get become better. So but that's what I would kind of hope for. It does get tricky with modern day remakes now because Pokemon has gone the open world direction, and in order to remake the games in that same art style, it requires making a different game.
Yeah,
Like it's a different game. And so it's not just a facelift anymore. And so that makes it a little challenging. But
definitely.
I think they do have a framework to have longer generations. Will they do it? That remains to be seen.
Mm.
Yeah. And let's see here. So, against my better judgment, I'm going to address this chat.
Okay.
Risky, who loves to be risky, with his chats, said, Andres restart. Why are you still reporting leaks from Zippo, knowing he's always wrong? So let's go to my YouTube channel. Let's go to my YouTube channel, and let's address this.
I'm pretty sure
Be-
we like said we
Don't.
didn't like Sippo last week, like, or not even last week. This
Well,
week
all
on
right.
Monday.
So let's talk about this, right? Like, because I think some people make a lot of assumptions, right, and don't actually like listen to what I'm saying sometimes. Um, but let me literally just share you my YouTube page just so I can like talk about some videos and some of the thinking behind why I decided to make that video and the content within that video, right? Because I mean, I'll be frank, right? It doesn't piss me off when I see people like call me saying I do clickbait, right? Or say I don't do my research, or say a whole bunch of nonsense, or call me a liar, or all this nonsense that I think, quite frankly, is nonsense. Obviously, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Who wouldn't? But let me just kind of explain some things, right? Because I think, a lot of people jump to conclusions, right? They put all content creators in the same boat, and that it is what it is, right? So I'll just briefly, right? You can see my screen, right, Brandon? You
Yeah.
can see my YouTube page. All right. So today, talk about Star Fox. Why? Because we had several different articles and that were alluding to something there. I think this is totally fine, right? This is not related to Zippo at all. This is about the reported Switch 2 leaks, and I didn't say the leaks were true, right? I said I think they're fake. I said that in the beginning of the video, and then I explained why I think they're fake. So I provided a video that was in an effort to spread truth.
Mm.
This video, insiders speak on the next direct. And so in the beginning of the video, I talk about 3 different potential insiders, and I clarify 2 of them have really good track records. One of them is new. And so I gave my opinions on those. One of them was Jeff Grubb, and I talked about how, hey, look, a lot of people are saying this person's actually, that in this podcast he leaked the Nintendo Direct happening in February, but I actually said, hey, I think this is, the way he's saying it sounds like speculation. Want to know what happened? Later that day, he clarified, guys, that was just my own speculation. I haven't been told anything yet, right?
Mm.
And so, like, what did I do? I spread more clarity on what's actually happening. Still didn't talk about Zippo. Actually, Zippo did come up in this video, but I wasn't talking about, Zippo wasn't one of the 3 insiders I was talking about. Pioro, the number 1 insider of all time, right, was asked about a rumor that Zippo has been spreading. And so I talked about Pioro responding to someone asking him about Zippo. Was not talking about Zippo, but Zippo came up because he exists. And we're not going to ignore something if it exists, right?
Right.
This is my predictions. This, I don't even remember what this is about, but it's definitely not about Zippo. Oh, this is just related to a lot of different people talking about summer stuff. So just different articles and predictions from other people who have good sources. This is just something that makes sense. However, people started talking about Zippo because he came back, right? He, and one of his last rumors before he was taken down on Christmas was Xenoblade Chronicles X remake. And so I decided to make a video. Zippo wasn't the reason I made the video. I made the video because I wanted to talk about Xenoblade Chronicles X, and I did. I did bring up Zippo because it was a conversation point on the internet, right? Not a point in the video. It was like a 30-second blip in the video, and I said, hey, he's talking about this. I don't know if a remake makes sense, but you know what I do think makes sense? A definitive edition. And I explained why. And there's a whole bunch of articles and interviews and sources on that, right? So didn't talk about Zippo. Like, Zippo wasn't the point of this video, but he exists, right? So I mentioned it. This has nothing to do with Zippo, nothing to do with Zippo, nothing to do with Zippo, nothing to do with Zippo. These are like literally direct, Zelda developer interviews. Not Zippo, not Zippo, not Zippo. Actually, this is about Zippo right here. So this one was about Zippo. Because a lot of people were talking about it. So I made a video on the conversation surrounding this topic. And the title is "This Nintendo, in quotes, leaker just got taken down." So this is intentional. I put quotes there on purpose. Why? That's me literally telling you that I don't actually think they're a leaker. That's why there's quotes there. And so reading comprehension matters, right? I didn't call Zippo a leaker.
Facts.
I called him an apparent leaker, a supposed leaker. And then I talked about his things. He was taken down. He did get the Mario Wonder stuff, right? So while I'm doubtful, I'm also not going to be so arrogant to say that it's impossible, right? That's not scientific. That's not critical, right? So I still will consider it a possibility, right? And so while I said I don't believe it, I did go over the rumors and talk about how they sound like really solid predictions. And that's what I think Zippo does. I think he does solid predictions. And so that's what it is. It's good speculation, but maybe sometimes he gets it right. And so maybe there's something to that. And because his account was taken down, and because some people thought it may have been because he was leaking stuff, that's why the conversation happened. But it wasn't saying, hey, there's this leak that's real. There's none of that. And then literally nothing else here is about Zippo, right? So this notion that I report on Zippo is just bullshit. So if you think it is, you just have poor reading comprehension. So there you go. Any disputes with that, Brandon?
No, definitely
All
not.
right, cool.
I think reading comprehension is something most people on the internet could do better at, even myself.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky, right? Because like literally YouTube, in an effort to get people to watch videos, the way it's done, you want people to judge a book by its cover. Which I don't know about you, but when I was raised, I was told not to judge a book by its cover, right? But
I don't know. I just did that like 4 times at the library before the podcast when I was picking out some books. I didn't have time, so I was just like, "This cover looks cool."
Well, right. I mean, sometimes you got to make assumptions, right? But fact matter is though, you should be. If sometimes it's just in general, like massive generalizations. There's all tons of exceptions across the board, but yes, do we use stereotypes and do we make assumptions on things because it streamlines our thought process and allows us to make decisions quicker? Yes, and so that is judging a book by its cover, and sometimes that helps us, but we should be aware that initial impressions can be very misleading. So
yes,
there you go. Super Chris here asks me, "Hey Andres, do you like Sonic Frontiers?" I asked because I saw use footage from the game in your video. I'm not gonna say I dislike Sonic Frontiers. I haven't played Sonic Frontiers yet. I use Sonic Frontiers in a trailer because it's good footage. Like it's a cool looking Sonic game, right? So I definitely put it in a video at one point or two because it's good B-roll.
right.
But I haven't played it yet. I'm not sure if I will. If it's at a discounted price, I might give it a shot.
Try it. It looks
Yeah,
fun.
like I don't think ill of the game in any way. It's just there's so much out there.
Yeah.
And so there you go. Let's see here. Dizzy Eyes asks me, any thoughts on if Nintendo would backtrack to licensed ports for higher performance games that came out during the lifespan of the Switch? Examples: Elden Ring, various Call of Duty games. I think Elden Ring's coming to Switch too. I actually kind of feel like Elden Ring might be like the Skyrim for Switch. In other words, Skyrim felt like an impossible port, came to Switch first year, had actually all, it was the remastered version, the initial remastered version, had all that nice content, and even included some Breath of the Wild extra little cosmetic stuff. I'm actually kind of feeling Elden Ring coming to Switch 2 early on, comes with the DLC expansion, and maybe even they'll throw in like a Tears of the Kingdom costume or something. That'd be kind of cool, right? That'd be cool.
That would be cool. I can see it. There's a lot of different armor sets in that game. I don't see why they couldn't do that.
Yeah, that it would be fun. So I think that Call of Duty, I mean, technically, Microsoft, I think, is legally binded to provide a Call of Duty game next year. Or this year at this point, right? So they've entered the 10-year deal already. I think it's already in print. So Call of Duty's got to happen.
Yeah,
So
as far as
yeah,
I think it will probably just be the new game to start.
maybe.
But they could definitely port at least the campaigns of older games because not all the servers are up. Although they did bring back, I'm not sure how long, the original like servers for those games. So I don't know. Maybe they could work something out there. That would be fun. But I definitely think there's going to be a lot of last gen games that were not on Switch, like later gen games that just didn't ever get ported. There in the first year, there's going to be a ton of those on Switch too.
Yeah,
Resident Evil
yeah.
4 remake is definitely one I see
It's on. It's
coming.
um. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they have another Hogwarts Legacy version for Switch 2.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that's
Yeah,
going to be pretty close to launch.
yeah.
If they might even let you just have a update if you have the original version of the game, or
Yeah.
maybe pay like an
I
upgrade fee.
think they're going to have like some sort of collector's edition, collector's enhanced version of like Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen. This other one is rumored by Nash Weedle. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's a Nintendo game, so it's not really a third party thing, right? But I think the Bayonetta trilogy. The rumor is that Bayonetta trilogy will be enhanced for Switch 2. And when you look at Bayonetta 3, that had performance problems,
Yeah.
that would be actually nice to see on Switch 2. So there are some things I definitely have in mind in terms of like third party games getting a second wind on Switch 2 for sure. For sure. I mean, there's a lot of third party games that are coming out this year that I want on Switch 2, like Visions of Mana, and we would talk about earlier about Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Monster Hunter Wilds is coming out 2025, but I actually think that's going to be a day and date title for Switch 2. We'll see.
There's some
Right,
rough third-party ports to Switch this year too, like Mortal Kombat 1.
Yeah, maybe
That
that
was
gets a second win.
horrible.
Yeah, it's another one that might deserve a second chance.
There was another
Yeah.
game, but I forgot what it was. It came out. It was really bad on Switch. Oh no, it's just Hogwarts. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. That
Yeah.
one
I
was
mean,
bad.
we talked about that one already.
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
talked about that.
The Zesty car added me. Do you think Red Dead Redemption 2 will make it onto Switch 2 early on, not cloud version? Is Red Dead Redemption 1 on Switch? Is that what
I think it just
recently?
recently happened.
Yeah.
Which is so weird that they haven't ported GTA 5.
Yeah. So Red Dead Redemption is on Switch. I would say yeah. Red Dead Redemption 2 should come to Switch 2 and not just a cloud version.
Oh,
I
no,
don't
yeah,
know. I don't know
full patch
when
for
that happens, right? Like I'm not going to predict it happens this year, right? Because they're clearly willing to wait a couple years to port games, right? So I don't know when, but I think it's a good bet to say that Red Dead Redemption 2 comes to Switch 2. Now, the only kind of caveat to this is if Switch 2 kind of bombs, but I think it's pretty much impossible for Switch 2 to bomb because it's going to be
Yeah.
Nintendo's primary platform, right? So in my like to me honestly I feel like a low ball for Switch 2 is 90 million lifetime, right? And so I say that because 3DS sold 75 million, Wii U sold like what 13 million, and with it being a combined effort I see them being more successful. Like obviously there's overlap, like some people who had both a Wii U and a 3DS, right? I was one of those
Right.
people. But what I'm trying to say here, right? That was that was a bad generation for Nintendo, right? They had a rocky launch. I think Nintendo's a lot smarter now. Their development process is far more streamlined now. So there's a lot of benefits. Their brand awareness is far greater. There's so much more momentum. So I don't even think that I don't even see a scenario where they only sell 75, right? Like assuming that Wii U like there isn't any home console gamers from that generation, right? Like assuming you just have you're just building off of the 3DS and then the Switch. Like I just think that I feel like 90 million is like a low ball. And so 90 million is still a substantial number. Now, obviously, it would take years before they get to that point, right? Even if it's going to be, even if Switch 2 ends up being better than Switch 1, which is unlikely, it's still going to be years before they get to 90.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Switch 2 has a better start than the original Switch. Just because,
you know what? That's an interesting point, Brandon, because Nintendo kind of had to earn it, right? They had to kind of prove it to people.
Like people know that what the Switch is. They're gonna know that they want it.
It's interesting. I'm not against the idea.
Especially if they have, I think if they have enough stock, I definitely think it will sell faster at the beginning. Also, we have seen a lot of times we've seen consoles where or generations where one like Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft will be on top, and then the next generation they'll be really bad. But we did see PS4 to PS5, great transition, and they basically did pretty much which is what Nintendo was doing, which is just kept doing exactly what they were doing, just better. And it's working out exceptionally well for them. They're pretty much on the exact same pace as PS4. I think they hit 50 million a week later than PS4 did. So
Wow. Man, it would be amazing if Nintendo could find a way to maintain pace of Switch.
I think
Dude.
it's possible. I think
Oh,
gaming is only growing.
yeah. That's exciting. Yeah, I think it is possible. But it's one of those. It's one of the. I would say, in theory, I would argue that Nintendo technically has a higher ceiling now than they did with Switch. So theoretically, they could outdo Switch 2, right? Like I think they have a higher ceiling now, but the odds of them hitting their ceiling are unlikely. But no one predicted the Switch would be as successful as it has been, right? So we'll see. I think that the Switch 2 is going to be a very interesting test for Nintendo because typically when they iterate upon a prior system, it flops or not flops, but it's less successful. And so if Nintendo can find a way to have similar success, if not better, that's going to maybe be I would argue, one of the biggest wins for Nintendo of all time. Because what that means is that Nintendo will have truly, finally found something that will just consistently work forever, and Nintendo will no longer have to do this song and dance of coming up with some wacky idea and praying it works this time, right? So, and I think we've kind of had this thought process throughout most of the Switch generation. It feels like this is like something that feels like they can continue to do, and so if Nintendo can have similar success as a Switch, that will kind of cement themselves as like this is the future of Nintendo. Like they're just gonna ride off into the sunset and probably take over the universe. Yeah, especially if they start getting up more Nintendo movies.
Facts.
Yeah. Let's see here. Connor, so what do you expect how Laboratory should do for Kirby this year? Like any new games, movie based off both games and the anime, or a sequel or reboot of Kirby right back at you? I'm personally predicting that we're going to see Kirby's Forgotten Land 2 or Forgotten World, the sequel to that 3D Kirby game from early 2022 in early 2025, so 3 years later.
Okay, yeah, that's also what I'm expecting.
Right. You thought I was going to say 2024. No, I'm not. Yeah. But the thing is, are they going to have something in between? And
they have Kirby all the time.
But do they have it every year? Is it possible that they kind of a skip year?
It feels like they just keep Kirby cranking all the time. Just getting them games out.
We're closing out in a couple of minutes, guys, like less than 5. So
it may be possible that they've skipped the year before, but I don't know.
Just because
it doesn't feel like it. I feel like they'll do something.
Trying to.
How big is HAL?
Should I look at the track history of HAL? That's probably
Yeah. Let me just look up.
Because we're talking about a HAL game though, right? I mean, pretty much. Is there a Kirby game that's not made by HAL?
Oh no. Maybe, I don't know. Are we expecting maybe a non Kirby HAL game?
That's possible. All right, so looking at the HAL games on Nintendo Switch. So 2018 Kirby Star Allies. 2019 Super Kirby Clash and Box Boy plus Box Girl. Okay, Super Kirby Clash, I think that's it was co-developed with Vanpool. Is that that's like an eShop title, right? Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And so that was co-developed. So it looks like they didn't put out any major Kirby release on their own in 2019. But of course they had a smaller thing. So could they have another smaller thing in the eShop? I think that's possible for 2024 this year. Kirby Fighters 2, another eShop title developed by co-developed with Vanpool. Part-Time UFO, that was another unique game that HAL put out. That's kind of cool. Actually, 2021 had nothing. From HAL. HAL released nothing in 2021.
Dang.
Forgotten Land and Kirby's Dream Buffet came out 2022. We got Return to Dreamland Deluxe 2023. So I think it's actually not a stretch to say that it's possible that we do have a skip year, but also very easily they could have like a smaller eShop title release that's maybe also again co-developed by Vanpool.
They're
So
pretty
there's been a little bit.
big studio, HAL Laboratories. They have 2
Yeah.
studios and they have 215 employees.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I was distracted by drinking water, which I realize sounds super dumb. But it's true.
They have 215 employees across 2 studios.
250?
215.
215. Well, that still feels like a sizable amount for what feels like not a lot. I mean, Kirby's Forgotten Land's a big deal. Don't get me wrong. But everything else is definitely smaller time.
Yeah.
But yeah. So maybe something small, but nothing crazy, you know? I'll tell you this. I would love a Kirby's Air Ride remaster. That to me, that would actually be kind of a big deal. But my prediction is next year we're getting the next 3D Kirby game. I think they want to follow up their most successful Kirby game of all time soon after. So that's my expectation. I don't know what happens this year, but probably something small, if anything.
That's gonna be such a good game. Such a good looking game too. Like Kirby's Forgotten Land looks stunning on Switch. Like
I think Forgotten Land's definitely a top 10 Switch title in terms of visuals.
Visuals, gameplay. It's just a great game.
It's one of my favorite games on Switch. Yeah, it's so good. And it's not necessarily like a super challenging game either. I mean, if you want to find everything,
you want to get those extra like
right. That's where the challenge lies. You got to find and that's what I did. I made sure to 100% that game, and that it was super worth it. All right. So final comment of the evening. Sam Talks provided one more super chat. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Sam says, assuming it's announced in March, should we expect Switch 2 earlier than September, short turnaround, or later announcement? So let's do the math. Let's say they announced it in March, right? If they have the exact same window as Switch 1 from announcement to release, 4.5 months, that puts us April, May, June, July, sometime in August or maybe early September, because you got those extra 2 weeks. That puts us close to September. That September period is kind of like what we've been kind of thinking, right? And some people have actually argued that maybe we don't see the announcement in March, we see it in April. And so if we see it in April, that definitely puts us in like that September window if they're going to mimic the same time period. What I feel like makes a lot of sense is that we're definitely going to learn about Switch 2 soon, in my opinion. I've been predicting by the end of March 31st, but maybe I'm wrong, right? And so it happens a little bit later, but not a lot later. So April, right? And then where that kind of positions us is for a massive June presentation where we always get an influx of Nintendo news, in case you didn't know. So I can see the typical E3 June Direct to be replaced by a massive Switch 2 presentation. Maybe it's still called a Switch 2 Direct or what have you. And that's where we get like the full-blown showcase. And before that, maybe March or April, we get like that teaser trailer. And that leads us into maybe August or September being the actual launch time.
Yeah. I think I said this on Monday, but if I was saying if it's more like a June kind of timing, then I think we'll see a teaser very soon.
Yeah, right. That makes sense.
We'll see the kind of trailer we saw in October 2016 for Switch 2 in this month or next month, and probably have a big event in March or April with pre-orders going live then. But if it's pushed back to September, I'm thinking that tease trailer will be put out by the end of March or April, and then the actual event where they would put pre-orders up afterwards would probably be in June. I think I said that on Monday.
Yeah,
I stick with that.
It's fair. It's very fair. Well, guys, thank you everyone for watching, for all the likes, the comments, just sticking around, the super chats, all. It's been a good time. I feel pretty good. It's another very fun stream. The
Hell
first
yeah.
few streams of the year, I feel like I've had a lot of really good energy, and
Mm.
yeah, it's a good time. I'm having a good time.
I always
But
love talking about Switch too.
yeah, and hopefully soon we could talk about things for Switch 2 that we know about
Mm.
when they show it off. But yeah, that's all for now, everyone. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye, guys.